Hello and welcome back to the Conscious Contact podcast. My name is Genay Peavey. I'm here with my co-host Susan Sanders, and I think this episode is really important, honestly, and it is about getting back into recovery after a break, not after relapse. I don't have experience with that, so I don't feel comfortable talking,
Same.
like giving experience, strength, and hope on that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, getting back into recovery or meetings or what have you after a break. Have you ever had to do this?
So there was the COVID break-ish. Before a lot of like when meetings shut down in person, and a lot of meetings, it took them a while to start up on Zoom. So I call that a break because I was very discombobulated. Like my whole schedule was blown out of the water. And then so then I kind of hit my stride and got back into that and, picked remote meetings, whatever. But then the summer of 2020, I spent about 6 weeks in Indiana with my dad. He had a knee replacement surgery go really wrong. And, I moved in with him to help him through that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to leave him alone and go to meetings, and I just talked myself out of doing the Zoom thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's such a private, personal thing that I didn't want to, just post up in the dining room and cry about how hard it was to be in Indiana with my dad while I'm in Indiana with my dad. So I do call that a break because it was really hard, and it was a change in my schedule that I had a hard time coming home and reinserting myself. Because again,
it's nefarious.
the whole landscape had changed. And even if meetings hadn't changed and whatever, like that was the excuse that I used. Oh, well, things aren't how I left them when last time I was in North Carolina. That was the excuse that I used, and then realized I was using excuses.
Yeah.
And then kind of went back to basics when we'll talk about some of those in a little bit too. So yeah, what about you?
I think that could be the whole episode. Go back to the basics. If you find yourself having been on a break intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's intentionally and you just don't know it.
Yeah, you can have unconscious intentionality.
Yes. Yeah.
No wonder I'm having trouble writing.
I like that. No, I love that. Yeah, I had a period of time, and it was early in sobriety, and that was really scary. Probably like 8 or 9 months in, I had a moment where I wasn't jiving with my sponsor at that time. And I just because I just didn't like the meetings that she was telling me to go to. It was a lot of like young people's and stuff like that. And spoiler alert, I'm not young in that sense. Like a young person's meeting is definitely geared towards a different group of people who got sober before I did at 27. And it just wasn't for me. And that was the thing that was keeping me out of meetings, is the ones I was going to weren't for me anymore. Either I outgrew them or I just wasn't getting filled up. It was taking from me instead of giving to me.
Right.
Because there's different types of meetings. If you don't know, I'm not going to go into detail because that's like against a tradition, I feel like. But broadly, there was a lot of discussion meetings that I was going to. And those were necessary for me in the beginning. Like I had to do that because one, I didn't know what the program was. I didn't know what a meeting was. I didn't know any of that. That was there for me to learn and talk and blubber and all of that. But then at a certain point, I realized it wasn't helping me progress, and it was making me not want to go to meetings.
Yeah.
The idea of going and knowing so-and-so's going to say this, and then they're going to share that, and then I'm going to feel less
guy with
than.
That story again?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes. And then I had a couple of meetings, that's kind of later on, and I'll talk about that. But yeah, so there was a period of time where the meetings that I used to go to weren't working for me anymore. So I was just like, well, I'm just not going to go to any of them then. instead of doing the intelligent thing and trying a different meeting out, you know?
Right.
I was lucky. I switched sponsors and she immediately was like, "How many meetings are you going to? What do you feel like after you leave? Do you have a literature study in there somewhere?" Like she was on it.
Mhm.
And I was just like, "I'm not going to anything except for this one." And she was like, "That's probably not a good idea. Why don't you try going to more?"
Yeah.
You know? And then judge how you feel after that. Cause that's what happened too, is stopped going to meetings and then everything was fine. But then I started feeling like I used to feel
Mhm.
when I was drinking, like restless, irritable, discontent.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Wait a second. This is not okay. I haven't felt like this in sobriety and I'm freaking out."
Yeah.
So I upped my meetings. Again, it took someone, a new sponsor, looking me in the face and saying, "You might not be doing enough. Like, you don't want to feel how you're currently feeling. Here's
Mhm.
what I did when I felt that way. Why don't you try it out?"
Right.
And I was willing enough to take that suggestion. That's the other piece too, because I have not been that person just because God gifted me with the willingness to do whatever the person who has what I want tells me to try out.
Mhm.
But I've had the experience with sponsoring people where they'll say they don't like how they feel. I say, "I used to feel that way. Here's a myriad, not just one suggestion. Here's all the things I did
Right.
to try to alleviate that. And this is what worked for me. Try one of those." And they're like, "No, I'm good," basically.
Right. Yes.
And
Yep.
then I have nothing left to give them.
Mhm.
Because if they don't want to try what I did that worked for me and they just want me to keep talking to them, then it's just me giving advice.
Right.
And that's not, I don't ever want to be that person, because that one,
Yep.
that's not okay. Two, it's just going to be bullshit if it's not my own particular experience with it. That's
Mhm.
what I'm going to know the most about. And that's the only thing that I can confirm works.
Right.
So that's all need to be giving to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's experience, not advice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I want to take a second just to broaden a little bit to non-recovery.
Hmm.
Although there's a flavor of recovery in any sort of self-improvement that we want to do. So
Hmm.
how I would compare this is arguments I've had where people say, "I don't exercise anymore because I went to this gym and it was just a bunch of platehead men that were oogling me and I felt super uncomfortable."
Hmm.
That is true.
Hmm.
And it is also true that there are a bazillion jillion ways to exercise.
Yep.
It's the person that says, "I tried to eat healthy, but every time I bring home all my every time I bring home healthy food, it goes bad too fast. So I
Mm.
can't eat healthy."
Mhm, mhm.
So I liken that to say, I quit going to that meeting because this guy in that story and
Yeah.
I didn't get anything out of it.
Mhm, mhm.
So this is just a soapbox issue for my husband and I. Like, well, what are you doing to change the situation that you're in?
Exactly.
And our
Yes.
kids hate it because we're like, all right, quit your
Yeah.
bitching. Like, what are you doing to change it?
Mhm.
And this is some, I'm sure your sponsor has said the same thing. Like, if you're in a meeting and it is going down the tubes and it's just everybody comparing their drunkenest moment,
Mhm.
what are you doing to bring the meeting back to something that will work for you?
Yeah.
And for me, what I try to do is bring it back to the literature.
Yeah.
What is in the AA approved literature or
Yeah.
whatever your program might be.
Yeah.
So, for example, if church is not working for you because people have ruined your church,
Mhm.
going back to your source material
Yes.
of,
Yes, your personal practice.
yeah,
Yeah.
your Bible, your Torah, whatever it might be,
Yes.
and talking to someone who is demonstrating the values that you want, whether it is
Yeah.
a person who is dedicated to their exercise program,
Mhm.
not necessarily what they look like.
No,
The
that's the
person
last
is,
thing.
yeah, the person
Yeah.
is dedicated to their exercise program, or the person that seems to be cooking meals that you want to be cooking, the
Yes.
person that has the sobriety program that you want.
Yeah.
What are they doing and how can you get more of that?
Yes. Yeah, and I think a big part of coming back, I think there's two pieces that I feel like kept me out or could have kept me out longer and that I see go on with other people is isolation and having to
Mhm.
crawl back from that. and complacency.
Yep.
Like thinking, oh, well, I've been sober for this long now and I don't think about drinking anymore, so I don't need to go to
Right.
meetings. I don't need to work a program.
Yep.
I'm good now.
I'm going to tear up everybody that I meet and
Ooh,
just,
I'm going to act like I used to when I was drinking. I'm just not going to drink, so I'll have no excuse anymore for my behavior. And that is nasty territory. And I've gotten complacent before, and then I start acting like a bitch all the time, and I'm like, oh, no.
Right.
Oh, no. I can't blame it on the fact that I was wasted. It's just me being a bitch, and that's on me, you know? Because at a certain point, it stops being about the drinking. The miracle of my personal experience with the program is that gets taken away from me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get to learn how to live life like a human.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, deal with life on life's terms and deal with all the reasons why I drank and get rid of those.
Mm-hmm.
And if I stop going to meetings, if I stop working a program, I start thinking I'm God again. And I start giving myself credit for the life that I have. And I start thinking,
my ideas are the best ideas.
Yes. And like, I've got this and I don't, you know, look at me. I'm sober. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not growing, I'm backsliding that's my experience. If I'm not that I need to be like self-flagellating myself or like beating myself up all the time, but if I don't have something in mind that I'm working towards, either softening or working through or looking at even, or working with another person and upping my service work, if I'm not doing something like that, I'm going to be in a bad place pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the isolation part, like, and this, again, like, there's no advice in this episode. I'm hoping that we're just only speaking from our personal experience and what has happened and yada, yada, yada. Yep. When I start isolating, the only thing for me to do is just pick up the phone. I have to have that as a knee-jerk reaction rather than, oh, I'm not going to call them because I don't want to bother them or I don't have anything to say or whatever. And that
they didn't answer last time, so why bother?
Oh my God. Yes. I can come up with any excuse to isolate if I want to isolate.
And I would suggest that is your alcoholic mind coming up with those excuses, not your recovery mind.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I need to talk to someone so they can hold a mirror to that for me.
Yeah.
And it is something that got drilled into my head when I first got sober is call me every day. Call other women in the program.
I hate that so much.
And I get it. I hated it too. And I argued about it all the time. But you know, when shit hit the fan.
Yep.
And life happened, instead of saying, oh, I'm not going to call them and having all of those excuses, I had built this habit of just automatically picking up the phone and just dial a number. You know what I mean? Like pick any of these contacts that have AA after the name.
Right.
And just call them until somebody answers, period.
Right.
And that saved my ass more times than I can count. And because of that, I now drill that into people that I sponsor's head because I will offer them my experience when shit hit the fan. If someone had not made me do this, if someone had not made me call them every day and call other women in the program and have the ability to talk to God and know when I need to call someone, I wouldn't have, and I would have eventually drank.
Right.
Period.
Because it becomes a habit.
Yes.
These are the habits that I do, and then your habits become what your actions are.
Yes.
That didn't make much sense. But
I know what you mean. I'm sure they do too.
So one of the I don't even know where this comes from. If you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got.
Yes.
And I always think of that in terms of you do shitty things, you're going to get shitty shit.
Yeah.
However, the converse is also true. So the things that got us to this moment of sobriety, however many days we have, if you always do those things, you'll always get this sobriety.
Yes. You don't have to you don't have to play catch up or come back
Right. And therefore you'll always get what you've always got.
Yes.
If you always do that.
Peace and serenity.
Right. So it's almost like an upward spiral.
Yes, it
is. Just keep repeating these things. Now, repeating these things doesn't mean everything is rosy.
No.
And that is why I picked the word of the year as equanimity. Because I can be I will be calm in the middle of that calamity. It doesn't
Mm,
mean that calamity is not going to enter my life,
right.
but I'm not going to get sucked into that tizzy.
Yes.
I'm going to be here as a source of calmness while all that's going on.
Yeah.
It is different from balance
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's not that I'm separating myself from the calamity. It is my ability to keep myself, my container that is just my body, calm.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I was thinking when you were talking that I think is an important tool is the idea of yet.
Mm.
And this really rings true to me because I was a huge yet when I got sober. And I know we've talked about this, but for those of you that think you're not an alcoholic unless you've lost your spouse, your kids, your job, your car, your legal right to be out in the world, whatever it
Yeah,
might
you're in
be.
jail. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any of that yet.
Yet. Yeah.
Now, there are people who are like, well, I'm going to break from AA because fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I'm going to break from my recovery program because,
Yeah.
fill in the blank. But I haven't relapsed, so I'm fine.
Mm.
You
Ooh.
just haven't relapsed yet.
Yes.
When you stop doing my experience has been, whether it's recovery, exercise, whatever,
Yep.
when I stop doing what got me here, I'm immediately starting my slide, and it can be super, super slow. You don't even notice it.
It could be years.
Yes.
It could be
Yes.
years. And I've had experience with people like that, that have either been in my recovery circle or that I've been on boards with or whatever. And man, I got chills thinking about that. It is painful.
Yeah.
It's painful to watch. It's painful to feel the small amounts that I've already felt of that. You know what I mean? I'm lucky. I used to have a high pain tolerance. Now I have a very low pain tolerance. So my knee jerk reaction is to dive back in whenever I'm like, Genay's being a bitch more than normal. What can I do
Yeah.
more of? But yeah, you can be dry for years and not drink.
Yes. So talk about that a
Oh,
little bit.
Yeah.
Being a dry drunk.
Yeah, I do actually have experience with that. I've not ever relapsed, but I had dry time before I came into the program. So that's even worse. I didn't even have any program to like soften the
Realize, yeah.
dryness.
And the dry means you're not drinking, but you're also
I'm not
not
doing anything else.
actively recovering to restore. Because when you
Yeah.
stop doing something, it doesn't mean that sand doesn't keep falling in that pit.
Yeah.
Unless you put something fluffier than sand in the pit, it will fill back in with a sludge.
Yes, and it was sludge. It was 2 years of sludge. I wasn't drinking, but I was the worst version of myself that I'd ever been.
Yeah.
I was nasty. I was more angry than normal. I didn't even know I could get angrier, but I did. It was gross. It was gross. It's the closest I've ever been to suicide. I mean, it was horrendous. Like I quit taking my medicine that made me able to function in the world.
Right.
And did not replace it with anything. And that is what dry time is you're not drinking, but you're not constantly filling the hole that leaves with something else. Your higher power, the fellowship, the meeting, whatever you want to choose to put in there, the program, your connection with something greater than yourself. You've lost that and you're just not drinking.
Yeah.
So you're just an empty wound walking around. Yeah.
And I love that example of recovery activities, and I'm specifically emphasizing action.
Yes.
That recovery activities being medicine. So I have asthma, and every several years or so, every 4 or 5 years, I decide, let's do an experiment and try not to take my inhaler.
Oh, God.
I bet my asthma is cured. And I stop my inhaler, and inevitably halfway up climbing some mountain somewhere in North Carolina, I go into respiratory distress and have to, save myself on the side of a mountain without my inhaler.
Yeah.
And a few times Paul's been like, are you looking for this? I know you're trying to pretend you're not an asthmatic.
Damn, that's a good example.
Right. Because what is wrong with being an asthmatic and taking an
Right?
inhaler every day?
Yes.
It literally takes 20 seconds a day, 10 in the
Yeah.
morning, 10 in the afternoon,
Yeah.
whatever. There's a financial outlay, whatever. It's fine. We have good insurance. We're fine.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, who do I think I am that
Yeah.
I can decide I don't have asthma? Who do
Mm-hmm.
I think I am that I decide that I don't need my recovery
Yeah,
activities?
yeah.
I'm not willing to risk that.
If you listen to anything, listen to that. I yell this at people, not like screaming in their face, but I say it very emphatically. If someone says, "Well, I'm not really sure if I'm an alcoholic," or "I'm questioning if I'm an alcoholic because I haven't drank for such and such amount of time," I'm like, "Okay, first off, you're in AA, so you're not doing nothing. You
Mhm.
didn't just quit. Like,
Right.
no offense, but you didn't come to AA willingly. You wanted to keep drinking and you came here and then you haven't. So
Right.
that wasn't you, whether you believe it's the program or the people or the whatever.
The God of
Also,
whatever your understanding is.
exactly. With your asthma example, would you rather go your whole life being healthy and having your inhaler and being fine and not dying,
Right.
or risk it all on the chance you die?
Right.
Because that is, if you are an alcoholic, and I believe this and it talks about it in the book, if you're an actual alcoholic, the choice is either recovery or death eventually.
Mhm.
And I would rather, even if I'm not an alcoholic, I would rather blissfully believe that I am for the rest of my life and get this program and have the life that I live now
Mhm.
than risk certain death, because that's the path I was headed down.
Right.
I would rather act as if like that risk is not even on a scale
Right.
versus what would happen potentially if I drank again.
Right.
So,
And
yeah.
you know who doesn't question whether or not they're an alcoholic? Non-alcoholics.
Non-alcoholics.
So if you're thinking about it, you probably are.
Yeah, or you should at least heavily investigate it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's descriptions of the alcoholic in a book that you can find if you Google, and it's very clear cut.
Right. Right.
And if you answer yes to those questions, then you're an alcoholic. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
That is the beginning of like the best promise that anyone could give anyone. If you're an
Mhm.
alcoholic, like, yeah, that's going to suck to admit that. However, that means that you can have a life of recovery.
Mhm.
That means that your life can change and it doesn't have to be this way forever.
Yeah.
It is the worst and the best thing that has ever happened to me. And much
Mhm.
now, like looking back on it from where I sit now in my recovery, the worst part doesn't even play a part anymore.
Hmm.
Like it was horrible living that way.
Right.
So me finding out that I'm an alcoholic is nothing but good at this point.
Yeah. Right. Because we have tools, actions, people
Yes.
to lean on.
Yeah.
And never having to figure out the answer is so freeing because
Mhm.
as a perfectionist, am I a recovering perfectionist yet? I don't know, but I'm going to keep working on it. I never thought I had the right answer, and I didn't because it was never working. Everything I did not work.
Yeah.
But now I have dozens and dozens of people who can give me other suggestions.
Yeah.
Or like in Greensboro, there are hundreds of opportunities each week to go meet with other people like me.
Yeah.
So if I'm saying, those aren't just working for me anymore.
Mhm.
So, and each time I go to a different gathering of people, it's a different group.
Yeah.
So each week there are different hundreds of opportunities to go.
Yeah.
So, I just call bullshit when somebody says, I just haven't found a meeting that works for me.
Yeah.
I just haven't found my right crowd, etc.
Mhm.
Well, you have stopped looking.
I would say they're right. They haven't found.
Exactly.
You
Right.
got some legwork to do. Yeah.
Right. What
Yeah.
an opportunity that there's low hanging fruit that you can
Yes.
access.
Yeah.
There are stones to turn over. Now one thing we talked about before with getting out of the habit of things, and this happened to me when I got out of when I was on my break.
Mhm.
I really got out of the habit of it's Monday, this is where I go. It's Thursday morning, this is where I dial in.
Yeah.
And anytime I'm trying to engage in a habit change, it really is a matter of breaking it down into small, repeatable steps.
Yes.
Putting it in my calendar, setting timers for things.
Yeah.
So as I'm trying to, so when I was trying to get back into the regular habit of meetings, I would find one regular one I was trying to connect to and one new one. And so I would put that on
Yeah.
my calendar. Here's my regular, here's my new. And then I had to take it a step further to be like, okay, so on Friday, I'm not planning next week, but I'm planning the week ahead because
Mhm.
I try to plan a week ahead. I put in a reminder, pick two more. Because
Yeah.
what if I didn't like either thing that happened this week? I also have a day to remind me because lo and behold, I'd be like, oh, well, dang, it's been 3 weeks
Yep.
and I forgot to pick a new one.
Yes.
That is just because life gets in life's way.
Mhm.
Or I would say your recovery mind is being edged out by your alcoholic mind. So if you set
Yeah.
yourself up for success with basic habit change principles, putting it in your calendar, adding a reminder, whichever connects best with you. If you don't have your calendar on your smartphone anymore, putting it in your planner, whatever the
Yes.
reminder needs to be.
Yeah.
You
Sticky
could
note on your mirror in the bathroom. I mean,
Right. It might take 5 minutes to put every Friday on a paper calendar, put in pick meetings, pick
Mhm.
meetings, pick meetings, or a reminder in your phone every day. I still have it, 5+ years to check in with my sponsor. I do that every
Yes.
day and
Yeah.
I forget after 5 years, I forget. So it pops up as a reminder every night.
Yeah. I think that that's a huge part of it, making it a priority no matter what. And
Yeah.
like getting back into it after a break, doing what worked at the beginning.
Hmm.
I remember how all consuming AA was when I first got in. Like I was going to a meeting every day. I was
Hmm.
calling my sponsor multiple times a day, every day. I was
Yep.
working a step at somewhere on a step, a portion of a step every day. It was life or death. And as you get more into recovery, you can again like you soften and complacency sets in and you're like, "Oh,
Hmm.
everything's fine. I don't need to." If I start feeling bad or if I'm easing myself out or I'm isolating or if I've drifted away from AA, jumping back into it with that zeal and doing exactly what I used to do
Hmm.
will immediately give me relief.
Yeah.
There's just it's not possible for me to continue to feel exactly how I feel if I'm doing all of that stuff, and it
Yeah.
does require making it a priority. And like the "oh, I forgot" thing in the age of smartphones and the fact that you can write it on a piece of paper and
Right.
stick it somewhere, I think that that's our addict brain.
I agree.
You didn't forget. It's not a priority.
Hmm.
Or you got busy and you didn't set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Because again, you just having the reminder in your phone, that's you making it a priority.
Right. And
Like
when the
just because you
reminder,
can't remember doesn't mean anything. It's
yeah.
you're doing what you need to do so that you do remember. You've seen that that is how you are, and you've taken steps to mitigate that.
Right. And that's coming from you. And you say your memory is bad all the time.
Yes.
So, how are you working with, if you know your tendencies,
Yeah.
how are you working within those tendencies to make this a priority?
Yeah.
So,
Plan it.
if that goes a step further, when the reminder goes off, do you pick up your phone and do it? So, when I see the reminder,
Yeah.
do I dismiss it
Oh.
or do I do it?
Ooh.
And if I haven't reached out to my sponsor, I'm certainly not going to dismiss that reminder. And then every time I pick it up to check Twitter, check Instagram, whatever, check what time it is, can I go to bed? I'm
Mhm.
seeing that I haven't done it yet.
Yes.
So there's that too. Like don't move that post-it from the mirror to the sink
Mm-mm.
until you've done that activity.
Exactly.
So that's where I want to be clear, you're forgetting could just be natural. You may have fried brain cells depending on where
Yes.
you are and whatever your recovery is.
Yes.
And you know that.
Mhm.
And what are you doing about that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's the whole point of all of this is to make it work for you. Your program is your
Mhm.
own.
Yep.
However, there are very basic things that we all do to get what the promises are stated for us.
Yep.
And that is a huge deal. Like also get an accountability buddy, whether that's your sponsor or somebody
Mm.
else in the program.
Mhm.
Having someone hold you to your own expectations for yourself
Right.
is very powerful. Like telling your sponsor, hey, I need to check in with you every day. If I don't, text me the next day and say something snarky. Like, make it
Unless
work
it's
for
me, don't
you.
say anything snarky to me.
Oh, Susan. Yeah, just tell them whatever you need from them.
Right.
Because habit change is hard and you might need accountability, especially with isolation and recovery and how our brains work.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to get to a meeting, maybe have another newcomer say, hey, will you meet me at the 10:30 meeting down the road on Tuesdays?
Right.
Like, let's set that up as a date. We'll get coffee before or after or whatever.
Yep.
Set that up for yourself to have some kind of accountability. Make it harder for you to not do the thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And one thing that really rings true for me, because it scares the shit out of me, is that at any given moment, you're either moving away from your last drink or towards your next drink.
Yep.
And there is no sitting still. Complacency is not static. Complacency, it means
Backwards.
you're moving towards your next drink.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take another one.
Yes.
Therefore, I need to do whatever it means to take me down the path away from that.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. That just is really frightening to me, that whole either you're moving towards it
be.
or away from it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Healthy fear.
Yes, thank
That
you
is
for
like the
saying that.
one
Healthy fear.
thing. Yeah. That's like the
Mhm.
one healthy fear that I have is drinking again. Because I know the first drink's not going to kill me, but it's every single one that I'm going to be forced to take after that because I am addicted to alcohol.
Right.
That's what's going to kill me. That's what's going to
Right.
tear down the life that I live. Like, if I drink again, this podcast goes bye-bye. You know what
So
I
we're
mean?
hoping that she doesn't.
Right? Yeah. Like, and I love my life now.
Yeah.
I didn't love my life when I drank, and that's why I drank. You know,
Right.
it didn't help. Obviously, it's not going to make my
Right.
life any better. So I'm like, screw it. Let's just tear it all down.
Yeah.
But that is the other thing. If you do drink again, like, we're not talking about that specifically, but even if you're just on a break, like you haven't been to meetings in 3 months and you're like, oh, I don't want to go because everyone's going to be like, where's she been? Or they're going to be shocked to see me or ask me what I've been doing. First off, we're all alcoholics. We're all selfish and self-centered. No one gives a shit where you've been most of the time. Like, not in a bad way, just in a, we are all obsessed with ourselves. They
Yeah.
either didn't notice or they're just going to be happy to see you.
Right. And when someone says, I'm so happy to see you.
Yes.
Just take it at face value.
Yes.
There's no
Don't read into
underlying-
that, please. Because I've had people like not get angry with me, but they've like gotten an attitude with me
Yeah.
when I've said that. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's not nice to see you. I don't know.
And
Sorry.
let me float another scenario that, let's use the example of someone's not been going to meetings for 3 months.
Yeah.
Let's say if I haven't been going to meetings in 3 months and I walk in and you say, it is so good to see you.
Yes.
How do I know that you also haven't been there in 3 months and you're just glad to be back seeing people?
Exactly.
You just don't know where people are coming from.
Yes.
Assuming positive intent can go a long way.
Yes. And honestly, I would broadly, and this is like a big statement, this is just my personal experience. 98% of the interactions that I've had with people in AA are positive, and they have had positive intent behind their words.
Mhm.
Period.
Mhm.
Like in a meeting before or after the meeting, not in like a separate fellowship area, because I think that I can get kind of, you know, but with the like before, after, or during a meeting, I've never had someone, 98%, I've not had someone approach me with ill intent to judge me or to shame me. Like, I've never felt that.
Yeah.
Ever. And I go to a lot of women's meetings too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that is kind of a different dynamic as well. But
I have had
Yeah.
someone approach me in a
yeah,
negative
yeah.
way.
I've
And I found out
also.
later that they had relapsed a month ago. So that person was in the throes of their addiction.
Yeah.
I felt the heebie-jeebies and I got myself out of that situation.
Yeah.
Talked to my sponsor about the heebie-jeebies and she's like, yeah, well, here's actually what's happening.
Yeah.
So just stay away from that person.
Yeah. And they could have either relapsed. They could just be dry and they've
Right.
been gone and they're angry and discontent. And also, you're entering a room full of alcoholics.
Yeah.
Like,
We've all got a lot of baggage.
We're all crazy. You know, we're all going there to be well.
Right.
So keeping that in mind, but genuinely, like, if someone's coming at you and not saying something that on the very front looks aggressive or mean or nasty, why not assume the best intent?
Right.
Like that. And because I walk around the world not aloof, but like, I don't really ever read into
Mm.
what someone might think of what I'm saying to them when
Mhm.
I know my own motivation.
Right. Yeah.
So when that person kind of got snarky with me when I said I was happy to see them, like legitimately I said, "Okay, I guess I'm not happy to see you then."
Yeah.
And then this same person is also like, I've gone up to someone near them and said, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." And then they'll walk out of the corner and be like, "I guess it's not good to see me." And I'm like, I
Right.
I love you. I'm praying for you. Like, what? I don't say
Yeah.
that to them because you don't tell someone that you're praying for them unless like it's
You do
genuine
in
and
the
they've got
South.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean. I'm not going to say that if I don't want to have a rough interaction with someone that has just come out of the woodwork
Right.
and said, "I guess you're not happy to see me."
Yeah, and I have a visualization of like literally unhooking my thought from that person as they walk away and float away
Yeah.
because I know my first instinct is to just burn down that relationship
Oh,
like, oh.
yeah. Yeah.
And I'm waving my finger around for those of you that aren't on the video.
Yeah.
I need and I don't want to do that anymore.
Exactly. Like, why do I want to confirm their thoughts about me and my intentions? You know what I mean?
Right.
I need to still show up as the best version of myself and prove to
Yeah.
them, not like prove to them. That's not exactly what I mean.
I want to be
Be
the
an example.
person. Yeah, I want to be the
Yes.
person that my higher power has knows I can be.
Yes. And the person that I say I am. I want to show up
Yes.
as that.
Yeah. I can't even imagine being the person my higher power thinks I can be. I'm
That's like
so
way aspirational.
yeah. And
But we
the
can
hard
try.
the hardest part of my recovery so far has been making amends.
Ooh.
And dear God, I am not going to make things worse and have to do more of them.
Right?
I can't tell you
Good
how many
motivation.
times I've thought I need to shut my mouth because I do not want to go have to discuss this with my sponsor.
Yes. I think that that is lovely motivation for habit change and personality change. Because old me, if someone would have done that, I would have been like, "You're right. I'm not happy to see you with that attitude."
You're right. Right.
You know what I mean? Because like
Yeah.
that's my knee jerk reaction is to give you back what you're giving me. And
Mhm.
that's not kind.
Right.
Like whether that's appropriate or not is left to be told, but that's not who my version of my higher power
Yes.
wants people to interact with each other. Because
Right.
if that person's, I know that person's hurting to be talking to me like that. Like
Yeah.
we weren't just acquaintances. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like I want to just hug them and just be like, "What can I do for you?"
Yeah, see, I'm not there yet. So, but I know if I just detach myself from them and let them
Mhm.
float off,
Just don't make it worse. Yeah.
that gives me something to do in the pause
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than curse them in the pause.
Oh,
That's not
yeah.
helping me either.
Yeah.
The other thing I meant to say earlier that I forgot about is in all of my time drinking, I never forgot to get my supply in.
Right?
So, if it is
Saying.
important enough,
Yeah.
I would suggest that you would set yourself up for success.
Mhm.
So anytime there was a snowstorm coming,
Yeah.
anytime I
Or a Sunday.
knew, yeah, uh, or Sunday before noon or what,
Uh-huh.
whatever it was going to be,
Yeah.
I never, I never failed to set myself up for success for drinking.
Yep.
So I know I can set myself up for success for an active recovery program.
Yes. And kind of going back to previous episode of choosing your hard, either I'm choosing the hard thing of living my recovery program and doing the things I know I need to do, which may be hard sometimes if I'm feeling distance or I'm going through something or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or I'm choosing the hard of continuing to feel the way I feel because I'm not changing anything.
Yes.
And that's where we get the power back. That is the right use of our God-given power is to
Yep.
take action steps to, nothing changes if nothing changes. If you feel like crap and you're not taking anyone's suggestions on what to do to potentially feel better, what they've done to feel better when they feel like that,
Mhm.
that's on you. And you get to go have your pity party by yourself. And
Right.
that is me being kind to you. Like if I give you 1,000,001 suggestions of what I did, if I haven't had that experience and I give you phone numbers for women who have and you
Mhm.
choose not to call them,
Right.
I'm going to say you can keep calling me, but I have nothing left to say. Like I'm
Mm.
not your therapist, I'm not your life coach. That's not okay in this
Right.
program.
Right.
I've told you my experience, strength, and hope. I've given you opportunities to get it from other people. You still keep telling me you hate how you feel, but you're not willing to do anything.
Mhm.
I'll pray for you and I hope you don't drink.
Yeah.
Like, and that is such a fine line and that is so hard. Like that tough love, being kind versus being nice. Me
Mhm.
being nice would be in
Well,
like a normie
I don't wanna
world.
hurt their
I don't want to hurt their
feelings.
feelings. Oh, that sounds hard, honey. You're right. You should just not go to meetings for another month and wallow in that and just call me and
Yep.
tell me how terrible it is.
Well,
And
it sounds like it's working for you,
yeah.
so
And I will pose that question because it's always posed to me. Well, how's that working for you?
right.
It's not. Okay, then. Well, why don't we take some suggestions,
Right. Right.
And
And
it's
the
hard.
universe tapping you on the shoulder saying, "Shouldn't you get back to thus and
Yeah.
such?"
Yeah.
is your higher power talking to you. Whether it is, shouldn't
100%.
you get back to meetings?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't you get back to walking in the morning?
Yeah.
Shouldn't you get back to calling a friend once a week? Remember how that felt? You felt connected with that?
Yes.
The listen to the tap on the shoulder.
Yes, because
Mhm.
I mean that is God. Whatever you choose to call that feeling, that power, that's
Mhm.
God.
Mhm.
Like it is those tiny and it's quiet and you have to listen. Like you
Yeah.
have to lower your pain tolerance so that you can feel it earlier. In
Yeah.
my case anyway, because if not, I'll just let it keep going until I'm, crying in a corner in a ball and not
Right.
talking to anybody. Like
Yeah.
I need to be aware enough of myself, and that means doing recovery stuff like prayer and meditation and talking to my sponsor, peeling
Right.
that onion so that I know when shit has gone awry and I need to like turn my wheel back onto the road out of the ditch.
Mhm.
And it is keeping it between the ditches. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
where you're at. Like
Right.
it's great to be in the center because I love this analogy. If you are on the roof of a building and you are scared of falling off, just stand in the center.
Right. Right.
Like that's how I feel about recovery. Like if you're in
Right.
the middle of recovery, there's no chance for you to fall off the sides. There
Mhm.
just isn't because you've got so many checks and balances set up for yourself. You've
Right.
got support system and meetings and steps and your higher power and all of that.
Right.
It's almost foolproof. It's not easy by any means,
Right.
but it is there. It's there for us whenever we want to choose it again.
Yes.
Like you can always come back to it. It's always going to work how it used to work at the beginning if you do what you
Yeah.
did then.
Yep.
Yeah.
You always do what you always did. You always get what you always got.
Yes. Ugh, love it.
Good. Well, any other thoughts on this topic before we move to our moment of joy?
No, just like I don't know. I want to give people permission to like not have to have another bottom. Like I
Mm,
want to give people permission to whether it's been a week or a year or multiple like you can just come back and it's going to be okay. Like no one's going to care, no one's going to judge you. You don't have to start over. You're still going to
right.
have all of your lived experience. Like it's just so good. You know what I mean? Like if every day isn't like 0.5% better, we should talk, like and we'll link some recovery like if you have no idea what we're talking about, you want to check out the book that we've got. You've taken a quiz online at midnight. We'll link some recovery websites and stuff below, so if you want help, it's there for you. It's available at any time. You just have to make the choice to go for it.
Yep. Good.
Yeah. Moment of joy for you.
Yeah, this is gonna take a superficial turn, but
I bet it isn't.
well, I think I've talked about the fact that I love fresh out of the laundry sheets. But this week we bought new sheets, so we had fresh out of the laundry sheets that were brand
Oh
new,
my god.
and I had shaved my legs. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna go to sleep. It's really smooth, but it was just such a delight. And I think, I think what you just said about the 0.5% better, sometimes it is those small things,
I would say always. Yeah.
but it's the acknowledgement of those small things.
Feeling it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be the sheets. I can't, a billion times, not a billion. There have been dozens of times in my life where I've bought sheets.
Yeah.
But I can't tell you, I just really noticed it this time.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Oh my God.
Just loved it.
That is a moment of joy. Like, it's there for us to cultivate whenever we want, and
Yes.
we can either choose to like lean into that and do it
Yep.
or not. And this is very odd. Mine is sheets as well.
It's so funny.
Slightly different, but I love a good like kitschy print, like patterned novelty fabric.
So let me pause for a second because people are like, "Oh my gosh, they agreed on something." My sheets are stark ass plain old white. so
these
we're
are not
diverging again.
No. These are not going on my bed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is planning for future Genay. My sheets on my bed they're not white, but they are plain. These are Christmas Vacation illustration sheets.
Wow.
And they're covered in every recognizable piece from that movie. The dry, busted open turkey, the tree, the RV, the moose glasses. Is
you're not sleeping because you were looking at your sheets?
No, these are not going on my bed. These just came, and they're going to get washed and put in a vacuum seal bag because these are going to be for a guest bedroom in the new house.
Oh, nice.
For Christmas, obviously.
Sure.
Just for December.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put these on my guest bed all the time, lest people think I'm crazy. I mean, maybe I will if it brings me joy, whatever. But yeah, I ordered them forever ago, and they've been on back order, and I finally got them, and I'll have to show them to you before you leave.
Yeah.
The illustrations are just so lovely. Like the style of it is glorious. It's not just like a picture print on fabric.
Okay.
And that's available for me to cultivate, not just for myself, but for people that stay in the guest bedroom at my new house.
Yes.
Like pulling back the plain comforter and seeing these crazy sheets. Like I can only, because this has happened to me staying at other people's places, the joy that brings me. Look at what an unexpected gift.
That's so funny because the sheets on my guest bed are also plain white. What are you gonna do?
That's
I know
easy
who I
to
am.
clean. Yes.
Yeah.
That is what matters.
Yes.
Know who you are and cultivate joy from that place.
Right.
Like, don't chase other people's joy because that's stupid.
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
No.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to hear how this episode landed for you, whether or not you're in recovery. I think there's something for everyone because there's the thread of habit change that has run through this. So let us know what you think. And if there's a situation that is not quite fitting that you want to help us brainstorm through, want us to help you brainstorm through, let us know.
Yeah.
I am at sustainablesue.com or I'm on Instagram at sustainable_Sue.
Yes, and I am at Genay Peavey, and if you want to join our book club, the book we have chosen is amazing. Just going to go ahead and say that. Go to consciouscontactpodcast.com. You can join the book club there, get all the details, follow along with us. And if you want to take a sneak peek into what it is, you can look up the hashtag CC Podcast Book Club and see our moments of shock and awe and just continual moments of joy with the book because it's twisty and turning. It's lovely. So
love it.
We'll see you over there, and we'll talk to you next time.